Welcome to the Elephant in the Room, where we provide truth, information, and inspiration. We talk about common topics, asking uncommon questions, questions that people are thinking but not saying. I'm your host, Edwin T. Lee. My co-host here is Keith Jackson. Basically going to just kind of do a recap. We're going to kind of talk about some things we've addressed in our past shows. Also talk about what's going on currently, and then we're going to mention some things moving forward as some potential shows that we want to do, and definitely want you guys to be a part of. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Elephant in the Room with Edwin and Keith. So get it started here. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. And you talked about a recap, and what that recap includes that some of the shows that we've talked about. We initially started, a couple of the shows and talking about the defining moments of our history, and that's important now in light of the seemingly assault with DEI, the removal, of certain contributors of history in this nation, intentionally for self-serving purposes.
Right.
For the purpose we talked about of self-control. So we initially talked about defining moments of history. Those defining moments being slavery and civil rights. And what's poignant in those conversations is we talked about the role of the church.
Right.
Talked about the role that the church plays.
As we get into it, what do you think? Has things improved? Has things changed? You think have things, as we talked about the church, we talked about the role of the church, we talked about, the history, and then now they've been trying to erase history.
Right.
They're trying to, dismantle, with this current administration, they're dismantling a lot of things, that have been traditionally part of, the running of the country.
That's correct.
And then you've had a lot of things that has been taking place, and you have people who are on one side or the other side. I know we had mentioned that, and how people, see things. You have, especially when you talk about the church.
That's right.
You have some churches whom, this is just my opinion, I think some of these organizations see it through the lens of white supremacy.
Yes.
They see the Bible through the lens of white supremacy. They see spirituality through the lens of white supremacy. And that's something we had definitely had addressed, prior to, along with the history, and then basically, we want to be able to at least think about, are things getting better? Or are they getting worse? Well, in your estimation, based on what we have talked about in previous shows, what do you think? You think things getting better and worse? Are you hopeful? What do you think, man?
Well, I will always be hopeful as a Christian, but I'm also, the Word of God says, for example, be wise as a serpent, yet gentle as a dove, with the emphasis on wisdom. One of the reasons that the world as it is today, or America in the condition it is today, is the removal of history, of our history, of our contribution, of not just our contribution, but of the atrocities that happened to our people as African Americans, since we've been over here, since the transatlantic slaves. So to answer your question, I think what's taking place is a reemergence of what's taking place in the past. When you see the slogan "Make America Great Again,"
right.
Okay,
right, yeah, that's.
And you look at the atrocities of history. One of the things that is happening in this country, that's systematically and intentionally being erased by the white supremacist structure, is the whole notion of this noble formation of America. Okay.
Right. But you know what? Just with that being said, make America great is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't have those two things cannot coexist.
That's right.
You can't. And then we talk about erasing history. You know what? Be honest with you, Keith. Think about it from this standpoint. History has not been taught. Number one.
Absolutely.
You talk about erasing history. You know, now that we're becoming aware of some of the things that have taken place and the atrocities that have taken place in our history, in American history, yes. Of course, they all, they want to make sure that it makes them look good.
Right.
So in the process of making them look good, they're going to erase all the things that don't make them look good.
That's right.
That's what. And then the things that make up, that don't make them look good, then those are the things they want to keep. And then think about it, a lot of things were not even taught in schools. Say, for example, I think about the Tulsa massacre. Wasn't taught. I didn't know about it until I was fully grown. Maybe within the past 20 years, 15 years, learning about a lot of history that I learned as it relates to African American history. Yes. I learned as an adult.
Absolutely.
Didn't learn it in school. So a lot of it, we in the truest sense, have been miseducated.
Absolutely.
And we've been indoctrinated into this mindset to think that America is this.
That's right.
When in actuality, it was something else. I had a friend of mine said that he always said that the American government is a criminal enterprise. That's what he called it. It's an enterprise.
And you can say that, and he can say that, considering the president that we have in office.
Yeah.
When you have a 34, a 34 convicted on 34 felony counts.
Right.
Literally a convicted felon in the White House.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I wanted to touch base on to why you were talking about, and it ties in the line to, a lot of what we talk about, through all of the episodes that we discussed, is one of the reasons why there's so much effort to erase the history is for white America to erase the shame of what actually took place. For example, when you look at even the founding of this country, you came over here, European Americans, you come over here in the name of your Christianity, because because this is the reason why we talk about the church, because the church was key in every last one of those movements. So here you are, you coming over here, you want to reduce the American, Native American Indian, Native American, you call them savages, you relabel them savages, and it must be in the Word of God for you to eliminate. So now you're doing an ethnic cleansing of all of the Native Americans. So you rid them of their land and their space and everything that is theirs. And then not only do you come and invade, but then you come and recultivate with stolen labor. So now you're bringing our ancestors, African Americans, over here. And yet you want to call this nation a beacon. So what you're doing by erasing history, the real history, and what our podcast represents, truth, what you're doing in the process is doing all this in an effort to alleviate your guilt. Even when you talk about Christianity, you're making Jesus and all the other major, all these patriarchs of the scripture white. You're painting them white. They all got long flowing hair. And, meanwhile, where in terms of the where they're from, in terms of the world, speaks in total contradiction.
And they always say, a lot of the MAGA supporters, Christian nation. Christian nation. Now you have these Christian nationalists.
That's right.
And these people are devoid of humanity. If there's ever, they just don't have any humanity. They do not display any kind of humanity. What they see it through the eyes of white supremacy. And then by that, it's easy for them to do the things that they do. If they don't see you as a human being. If they don't see you as a human being, okay, we can not provide the aid or not provide what was needed to help people. To help people, be it black, white, yellow, no matter what color you are.
That's correct.
And what's happening, you're going to see, or what you're seeing, is that people are really responding now to some of the things that are taking place. And for whatever reason, some of them are surprised, which, I don't understand the surprise, because this is what was forecast even by the president himself before he got elected.
Absolutely.
You understand? Now, for whatever reason, they gravitated toward a issue and rallied behind it. And they gravitated toward that issue. I'm going to use abortion, for example.
Yes, right.
That they rallied behind this particular issue in support of this particular president. And in doing so, you know, you are subjecting yourself to now all the things that are happening.
Absolutely.
You're subjecting yourself to it. Now you're like, wait a minute, I didn't realize, or where is this coming from? Or I didn't know this was going to happen.
Absolutely.
When he really was, this is what he forecasted. And you look at this guy, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
He's 34 counts against him. He's a felon, a criminal.
A criminal.
So so he's now ahead of this criminal enterprise called the United States government.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like, you know, so with that, you know, we have to really be honest.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the biggest part of it, man. Just kind of being honest with where we are and the realities of where we are, and it's going to take a groundswell of voices and communities and people to go against what's really happening. And then we talked about the church's role. You know, what role does the church play in this? And then what role do we play? What do we do as a church? Because right now, we are two polar opposites. I talked to a friend last week, and this is a guy we went to school with. Well, we worked with, went to school. Well, he worked at the school we went to, and they now don't communicate with each other because one is on one side, and one is on the other side.
That's right.
So Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? You know, so there is a situation in which it's really
a challenge. And I wanted to touch on a point that you made when you talked about the truth of the matter is, and that's what we're all about, bringing truth. The truth of the matter is, we still live in a structured environment. I remember I heard a commentator say this about the emancipation, because emancipation was all about freedom of course, was the freeing of slaves. And he said there's a difference between freedom, emancipation and freedom are two different terms. Okay, so when we were emancipated, we weren't free, because shortly after that, then you had what was called the black codes.
Right.
So now they're free. Now we can't have them work our land for free, at least not in the current setting. So we got to come up with another way to do it.
Oh yeah.
So now they come up with the black codes. Endorsed again, the church being the primary endorser of all of it.
Right.
Because all of the ones that we're talking about that came up with these laws, even all the way up until today, are professed Christians. Are professed, quote unquote, the church. And so what you have here is, like you said, it governs itself on the basis of white supremacy. Because even now, you look at our climate now. People want to say, the church shouldn't talk about politics. The church should talk about everything that affects life.
And I agree with that, because you just mentioned how the black codes, and now a byproduct of the black codes is the prison industrial complex.
That's correct. That's right.
And that's what came out of the black codes, because the black codes are like, hey, if they catch you if you walk in a certain area you're not supposed to be in, they quote unquote are supposed to be in, they can arrest you, put you in prison.
That's right.
If you vagrant it, loitering, they can put you in what? If you spit on the ground, all right, we put you in. So they get all these black men, put in prison, and put them right back out in the fields where they just come out of.
Absolutely.
They were in jail,
and also what they did too, you talked about this, I want to add this piece that I studied on. One of the things that they did as part of the industrial prison complex is they rented them, to plantations.
Yeah. That's what they did. Rented them to plantations.
So not only were they prisoners building, on prison land, railroads.
They worked back on plantations.
Exactly. They went back to those plantations, sent them back on the plantation as part of their penalty for not having a job, spitting,
all those things.
So, all of those things, not being given what, not even a anything that we should have gotten.
Right.
A la the 40 acres and a mule.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
And then you want to turn around and say, through all of 200 and close to 240 years of slave labor, free slave labor.
Right.
Then you turn around and then you come up with the labels of us.
Oh yeah.
Now we're lazy, but we the ones working for 200 years.
Right.
You calling us, you know, nasty and dirty, but we the ones cleaning your house, taking care of your kids. You know, the women, you know, our women had to breastfeed your children before.
And that's the reality that they don't want to that part of history.
Right.
That's what they trying to and make, or they want to make it as if we were we were in agreement with that.
Yes,
we went along with it. Whereas we didn't go along with it. It was terrorism that kept us in those positions to where we feared for our lives.
That's right.
We feared for our families, and then there were those who despite the fear for their lives, that made us stand. And that's the reason why I go back to say that we were miseducated.
Yes.
We were miseducated on all those things, nuances, those things that took place, that even now, you still have the remnants of all of those things that took place not then. Now you still have those remnants in society now.
That's correct.
In the church now, it's still there. So it hasn't just completely, because one of the miseducations that we had was that we think that when Abraham Lincoln, when we grew up in school, he was this man who signed the Declaration, Emancipation Proclamation.
Esteemed as a hero.
Right. Esteemed as a hero. When in actuality, he wasn't a hero.
No.
We fought for our own freedom.
Absolutely.
We fought for our own freedom. We took up arms with the Union Army.
Absolutely.
When the South, when they began to when they broke away from the government, we just said, hey, we escaped, we go to the Union and fight. So that's because were it not for the black soldiers, we wouldn't have won the war. Absolutely. Because that way, that's what. So in essence, we fought and we freed our selves.
Yeah, and add to that point. To add that point to what you were talking about, the truth about the ending of slavery had nothing to do with President Lincoln.
Right.
It goes back to your point. It had to do with the resistance.
Yeah.
Slaves was willing to die on that plantation, if not run away.
Right. Yeah.
And more. So run all the way to freedom to Canada or wherever they could find freedom up north, or they were willing to join the, like you say, Union Army. So you had more of that going on. So slavery was in of itself falling apart because you didn't have the willing participation anymore, like you said, or enough willing participation to continue to allow your plantations to run effectively.
Right. So and like I said, you have those remnants, that still, and I say remnants, I mean in the thinking, the ideology, those kinds of things that manifest itself, even today. And as we talked about it as it relates to the church, and I think as a church we have to kind of go back and just kind of rethink, how we approach and how we communicate to each other.
That's correct.
To keep each other engaged and to understand that it's going to affect everybody. Especially now.
Absolutely.
What's happening now,
absolutely.
It's not going to just affect white people. It's going to affect everybody. And then now you got these, ICE raids. You got all these things that's going on. And, people who are being innocent people are being sent to these, concentration camps now.
Right.
In Florida, and they're not getting the due process, even though they may be citizens.
That's right.
They grabbing them and without no due process.
Absolutely.
They send them right on. So where is the humanity in any of this? And that's my point. There is none, no humanity in it.
Well, and also the type of humanity. To your point, because this is the same administration that's bringing these white farmers here from Africa.
There you go. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So unless you the right pigmentation, see again from the very beginning of it all, when the European settlers first got here, you came up with a term called race, and you came up with a system called you came up with a systemic racism system,
Right.
okay,
Right.
that permeates today. So the quote unquote church, the white evangelical church, is living a lie every day.
Right.
The fact that you're living a lie as it relates to your identity that they want to keep. See, the whole idea
that identity now is not so much the identity, Keith. It's the power that comes with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what they're holding on to.
That's it.
That's the reason why they hold on to whiteness.
Absolutely.
With the grip that they got, because of the power that whiteness, lends them, it gives them.
Yes.
You understand that?
That's
White
correct.
supremacy, white privilege, all those things that's the benefit.
Absolutely.
Of being white. I said, I heard James Baldwin say one time, he said, there's one thing that all white people agree with. They don't want to be black.
That's right.
That's one thing they all agree with.
That's right.
They can disagree on a bunch of things, but one thing they do agree with is that they don't want to be black.
Absolutely.
So it privileges that comes with being white, and that power.
Yeah.
That's what that's what they're holding on to. They try, and they're gonna do. They're fighting.
Absolutely.
Let me say it like this: they're fighting tooth and nail, coming up with anything they can possibly come up with to maintain the gerrymandering, all this stuff that's going on now, to maintain power.
And we see it right here in this state here in Tennessee. When you look at even recently, there was an act in which just recently, and that's still ongoing, where you have a situation where there was a underground railroad, not railroad, but subway to the airport.
Tunnel.
Tunnel to the airport. Guess who co-signed and endorsed that? All white Republicans outside of Nashville.
Right. Yeah.
You had one black one black representative that those were his constituents. They blocked him from attending.
Right. Yeah.
So we know what this is all about.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, this is about, again, this is all about, maintaining power and supremacy. But I wanted to touch on, there was, I heard a commentator say this. He said, and a lot of times, white folks don't want to admit this, because you hear white people say, well, I got a black friend and, I'm not racist. But the very fact that you identify something that's self-proclaimed, it's about who you identify with. So, I heard a commentator say, there's a difference between racism and being a bigot. He said, a bigot, I don't like you because of your color. I'm going to tell you to your face. He said, racism, it's not about, I don't have no hard feelings or anything towards you. I think you can move in my neighborhood or you can do all this sort of stuff, but I'm going to maintain the power.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to maintain the resources.
That's it, yeah.
That's what, it goes back to your point about power. And that's how it's been ever since they hit the shores back in the 16th century.
Because that's the reason why black people can't be racist.
Yeah,
because we're not able we're not in a seat of control to determine where you go to, whether you go here, whether you go there.
That's correct.
We're not in that position. Now we may be in little, microcosms, but as a whole, as far as the system,
that's correct.
We don't control the system.
We don't control the system,
and the system is that's the system because I can be bigot, I can be prejudiced, but race, I'm not in a position to control, I don't have that particular power.
Because we didn't create the system.
Right, we didn't create it. So, and then, with that, being said, and I'm thinking as, Christians, as, you and I, we have to really begin to see things not from a tunnel vision.
That's correct.
We kind of have to expand, because you think about, God and Christianity and our beliefs, understand? Again, our beliefs. You have to incorporate, all those various elements that go on in society.
That's correct.
So we can't be just tunnel vision, see what we are doing, and this is, we got to be at church at X number, on Sunday morning or whatever that may be. We have to expand, that view, and then being able to walk in love, walk in humanity.
That's right.
To embrace, everybody. And since not say we agree with everybody, but we can open arms and embrace people, because those people have the same basic needs every man has.
That's correct.
We need food, water, shelter. You need love. Everybody needs.
That's right.
These are basic human needs that everybody has. That we have. So we, so I'm thinking here again, I'm talking as a church as we move forward in other conversations that we probably have. Right. We have to think in terms of how can we embrace and how can we talk about politics. How can we talk about homosexuality? How can we talk about these various, immigration or that's coming. How can we talk about those things and incorporate and not how can we talk about those things and eliminate the human element out of it?
Well, we do it by addressing, by being truthful to discuss those issues. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to, try to include everybody.
Right.
But in order to do that, just as throughout the history of God's word, God dealt with his people by exposing the issue that the people had. So what we have to do is we have to expose, we have to talk about, because the word tells us, let us reason together.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what we have to be able to do, in a like you said, in a way of humanity where we really are reaching out to our fellow brothers, is first of all we have to recognize them for who they are, not what they're called. That's the first thing. First, the second thing is we have to acknowledge all of what's going on in the church that we're doing through our program. We're touching on, like the financial component is huge. The financial, disparity. The like you said, the issue of alternative lifestyle. Mm-hmm. All of those are within the church.
Yeah.
So we have to address the white. We already talked about white supremacy. That was the biggest part of many of our broadcasts. Mm-hmm. Those things have to be talked about and addressed. They cannot be glossed over as the white America just want us to forget about it. Right, that was back then. Mm-hmm. Because the first thing that you're gonna always hear is that was back then. But what we need to also talk about in the church is legacy passed down.
Right. Or what type of legacy?
The legacy passed down. So the white supremacy is a legacy passed down. Yeah. That's the reason why we're still living today. Right. Yeah. Those same ones that want to sit up there and say, well, I'm not racist. Well, you still identify as white, so you still associate. Right. If you know the truth as a Christian, your ancestors came from Europe, why aren't you calling yourself European? Mm-hmm. Why are you calling yourself white? And why is it necessary for you to call yourself? Because of control,
power that goes with
and control, and to minimize.
What's that? Membership has benefits.
Yes.
What is that? Was that a
membership has its privileges?
Membership has its privileges.
That's American Express.
American Express. Yeah. And that's what white supremacy has its privileges. It has its privileges, and that's what it is. That's when you come in. I remember I had a student. One time they were Hispanic young lady, but to look at her, you would think she's white. So she said, I mentioned something to her. Another student said something to her. She said, "Well, I'm not white." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "You say you ain't white? Tell that to the police when they pull you over."
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So on a surface level, they don't want to identify with it, but in a societal level, because again, whiteness has its privileges, and that's what it is. So, and that's a truth, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. The failure is that they don't want to acknowledge.
That's right.
That and then some people who have become self-aware, can say, "Well, yeah, you're right, because I am. This is why." Yeah. Because just acknowledging that, and then hopefully, what we would like to do. Moving forward is to be able to address not only those issues, but a multitude of whatever issues that we feel like that's taking place, and just bring it to light these things. Absolutely. And that way we don't want to put our head in the sand.
Absolutely. To
these things, because it's like you mentioned earlier, the politics. A lot of times people they want to avoid talking about it, but you have to understand politics basically. They control the control of resources. Right. And these resources that what we need to survive.
Absolutely.
We need these. We need the resource. We need water. We need clean air. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Water, clean air, food.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Clean food, food.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? We need these things. And this
Absolutely.
is what policymakers, they decide how these resources are divvied out.
Mm-hmm.
Who gets what? Who gets what? Who gets these medical care?
Mm-hmm.
We all need medical care.
Absolutely.
And see, now with this big, beautiful bill, they trying to cut away what Medicaid patients.
20 million people are going to be taken off of health care.
They're trying to put all and that's what's going to affect all of us.
Absolutely.
In one way, shape, form, or another. So we have to be as aware.
Absolutely.
Of all of these things, and not, categorized, well, that's them, that doesn't concern me. Well, it will. You know what I'm saying? Eventually it will in some form. Even if it's not you may know somebody that's having to go through it.
That's correct.
You may have a family member that has to go through that. May not, don't think because may not affect you personally. You may have somebody else in your family that's having to deal with that.
Absolutely.
And then, so with that being said, how can this be dealt with from a humanity point of view, as opposed to a race or color? And I know I'm gonna say this. We're gonna get ready to wrap it up, man. I say this a lot of times. People will say, "Why you got to bring race into it?" Mm-hmm. Race has always been
always.
Well, I mean, I ain't bringing it.
And the truth of the matter is, and here's the thing. Here's the truth about that. The truth about that is this: we didn't bring race into it. You all brought race into it.
Right.
You created it. You came up with it. You came up with a system.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm mentioning something that you created, like you said, I can't be racist because I didn't come up with the system called race or racism.
Or they say, well, why are you trying to divide?
Yeah.
I ain't come up with the division. You guys originated that.
All we're doing is articulating the truth. Right. We're articulating what's actually going on.
Yeah. So those kinds of things that we have to be aware of, and as we move forward, and hopefully as we move forward with our show, what we're doing, we want to bring out, bring those things out, to talk about it, and to see how can we address these things. That's going to be, what is it? Fair? I don't know. Should I say fair? Is fair a good word?
We're gonna that fits. We can talk about. Would that be? We're primarily again, truth where it fits.
Right. Okay. Truth where it fits. Truth where it fits. We want to be able to again, provide that truth, provide that inspiration, and provide truth. I mean, truth, information, and inspiration that you may be inspired to take action, whatever that action is. That's correct. And we're not going to tell you what to do, but we put the information out there so you can decide, what it is, that you what you're going to, as Joe Madison would say, what you're going to do.
Yes, to make an educated decision. Because what we're doing is we're providing truth. We're providing the truth so you, our viewers, can make that educated decision or be moved, as my partner said, be moved to do something. Certain and moving forward, as we talked about, we're going to be discussing one of our coming topics we're going to talk about is alternative lifestyles in the church.
Right.
Those are, again, truth. We know that that's in the church. Those things have to be addressed when we're talking about getting better. In order to learn from a problem, the problem has to be identified.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing with truth that we're sharing. We're identifying for the purpose of, once it's identified, now we can come up with a solution.
Right.
Move in
that direction. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. And we definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. The Elephant in the Room with Edwin and Keith. Peace.